Wife reveals husband's affair with sister at family event, Perth, Western Australia, August 15th, 2020. At the stroke of midnight, the neighborhood was enveloped in darkness, punctuated only by the sporadic flickers of streetlights that cast ghostly silhouettes on the desolate pavement. Nestled on the fringe of the suburb stood a seemingly tranquil house. Yet, within its walls, a starkly different scene unfolded under the dim glow of a solitary lamp. Shadows quivered against the walls, tracing the outlines of a fierce altercation that resonated with a raw, almost animalistic intensity. This was no mere quarrel, it was a deeply disturbing clash bursting with raw emotion. Abruptly, the night's silence was ripped apart by a loud crash, suggesting something massive had struck the wall. This was swiftly followed by the stark, chilling echo of a gunshot, slicing through the night as sharply as glass. The aftermath was hauntingly silent, the kind of quiet that weighs heavy like a dense fog. Outside, the streets remained deserted. No eyes bore witness to the turmoil inside, but the gunshot's resounding crack tore through the night's calm, unmistakable, and alarming. Mere minutes later, a frantic emergency call was made to Perth police. A woman's voice, laced with panic and dread, trembled through the line, reporting the shooting and a man down. "He's not moving. Oh my God, help!" she screamed, her voice cracking under the strain. Reacting swiftly, the dispatcher deployed a patrol unit. Arriving swiftly, the officers were met by the eerie sight of a woman on the front lawn, her figure shadowed by the flashing patrol lights. She stood frozen, her complexion ghostly pale and her eyes wide with horror, her body quaking with uncontrollable tremors. Inside, the house bore the scars of chaos. The living room was a scene of havoc. James Watson, age 38, lay lifeless, his body contorted unnaturally, his gaze fixed and unseeing. A growing pool of blood spread ominously across the floor, seeping into the carpet and staining the surroundings with its grim hue. The room told the tale of a violent struggle. Chairs were toppled, and the furniture and walls bore distinct marks of impact. Amidst the turmoil near Watson's body lay a shotgun, its barrel ominously pointing towards the entrance, silent testimony to the events that had transpired. At the initial examination of the scene, it appeared as though a break-in might have occurred at the Watson residence. However, the lack of any forced entry quickly dispelled this notion. Officers promptly secured the perimeter and summoned detectives and forensic teams to commence a thorough evidence collection. It became evident that this event was not a mere act of random violence. There were deeper, more intricate layers to be uncovered. The distraught woman found on the lawn was identified as Catherine Watson, James's wife. Overcome with shock, she was barely able to articulate her thoughts, her hands smeared with blood as paramedics attempted to soothe her agitation. At the police station, amidst her distress, Catherine managed only a few words. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know it would end like." As the investigation unfolded, the police sought insights from the neighbors, though no one reported anything unusual prior to the gunshot. An elderly neighbor, Mark Ridley, noted he had seen Catherine and James arriving home together earlier that evening. Despite their apparent tension, he hadn't considered it alarming at the time. His observations were noted, but they did not immediately advance the investigation. Inside the house, however, forensic experts began uncovering clues that suggested the dispute between Catherine and James had begun well before the fatal shot was fired. Among the items discovered was an envelope on the kitchen table, casually left open, containing various documents and photographs. Initially, these items seemed mundane. However, a detailed examination revealed several photos that documented intimate family moments. These images potentially held crucial insights into the motives behind the tragic event. Detectives endeavored to reconstruct the sequence of that evening's events. Around 8 p.m., the couple had returned from a notably strained dinner at a local restaurant. Those familiar with the Watsons remarked that the meal had been fraught with discomfort, yet nothing had explicitly foreshadowed the impending disaster. At one point, James had expressed a need to leave for an unspecified errand, but Catherine insisted that he remain, stating they had important matters to discuss. Upon returning home, Catherine proposed they unwind with a drink and enjoy a peaceful. She left James in the living room and ascended the stairs with the envelope, leaving James oblivious to the turmoil that would soon unfold. Catherine returned downstairs, clutching the documents firmly, her expression unreadably blank. She placed the envelope on the table before James and stood motionless, waiting for his reaction. Upon noticing the envelope, James's face visibly altered. Although he attempted to maintain his composure, the escalating tension in the room was palpable. Catherine remained silent, yet the intensity in her eyes conveyed more than words could. A suffocating silence enveloped them. marking a pivotal moment when the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Soon, a fiery argument ignited, quickly escalating into a cacophony of shouts. At one juncture, James reached for the envelope, but Catherine tightly grasped it, determined not to relinquish the documents. During the crime scene investigation, detectives discovered a shattered chair, which seemed to have been used as an impromptu weapon. Papers and photographs were strewn across the floor, some marred by bloodstains. The chaos suggested a fierce tussle over the documents. The evidence indicated that the fatal shot was discharged during a struggle where James attempted to seize something from Catherine. The trajectory marks on the carpet and the positioning of the shotgun suggested that Catherine had indeed fired the weapon. Further investigation into James and Catherine's phones revealed additional intriguing elements. James's phone had been switched off at 10:30 p.m., deviating from his usual habit. External surveillance footage captured him leaving the house at this time, only to return 10 minutes later. His activities during this brief interval remained shrouded in mystery. Catherine, still profoundly shocked upon her arrival at the station, was unable to furnish a coherent account of the event. Her fragmented recollections indicated that their argument had escalated dangerously, spiraling beyond control. She professed to having no memory of how the shotgun ended up in her hand. While detectives observed her evident distress, they suspected there was more depth to her narrative than she was disclosing. This prompted a deeper probe into the intricacies of the Watsons' relationship. James and Catherine Watson had been married for a decade. On the surface, they led a seemingly tranquil life without children, yet beneath this facade, tension simmered. Neighbors noted that James had been increasingly absent from home in recent months, fueling Catherine's suspicions. Although the specifics of their marital strife were not public, friends and neighbors could sense the growing strain in their interactions. The plot thickened when it was revealed that Catherine had enlisted the services of a private investigator just a week prior to the tragedy. The exact motives behind her decision remained shrouded in mystery. Whether she was amassing evidence against James or probing into another matter was yet to be uncovered. That same evening, police received the forensic analysis results of the shotgun found at the scene. The analysis uncovered James's fingerprints on the shotgun, but they were peculiar, suggesting he might have only briefly touched it. This anomaly led detectives to consider the possibility that someone else could have wielded the weapon during the critical moment. The next morning, as the Perth police revisited the Watson residence, the crime scene was still under strict lockdown, with forensic teams meticulously collecting further evidence and detectives striving to construct a clearer narrative of the preceding event. Initially, the incident seemed to stem from a spontaneous surge of violence during a heated argument. However, the accumulating details began to challenge the simplicity of this narrative. Detective Richard Hale, spearheading the investigation, decided to reassess the surveillance footage to ensure no detail was overlooked. The footage reaffirmed that James had left the house at 10:30 p.m. and returned shortly thereafter. Yet, a subtle discrepancy emerged. A brief interaction between James and an unidentified individual in a car parked near the curb. The camera captured only a shadowy figure, making it impossible to discern the face of the person James conversed with. Realizing the potential significance of this encounter, Hale initiated an inquiry into the identity of the mysterious figure outside the Watson home. Concurrently, Catherine underwent a second round of questioning. Her mental state, however, remained fragile. She continued to assert her inability to remember the specifics of the escalation, maintaining that the events had unfolded too rapidly for her to comprehend. Catherine's responses were disjointed, her gaze distant, but a fleeting change in her demeanor caught Detective Hale's attention when he mentioned the car seen in the surveillance footage. It seemed as though she was concealing something. Meanwhile, the investigative team delved deeper into the contents of the envelope recovered from the crime scene. Contained within were several photographs evidently snapped by a private investigator. These images captured James in the company of a young woman whose face was consistently obscured, either by strategic angles or obstructions. Accompanying these photos was a report listing various rendezvous points: a cafe in downtown Perth, a parking lot at a local shopping mall, and a motel on the city's outskirts. Yet the report stopped short of revealing the woman's identity. Detective Hale deduced that Catherine had indeed employed the private investigator to shadow her husband, suspecting infidelity. However, the exact connection between these photographs and the crime remained elusive. To gather more insights, the investigators made their way to the private investigator's office. They were greeted by Thomas Morgan, who appeared noticeably uncomfortable upon the detective's arrival. Morgan confirmed that Catherine had approached him about 2 weeks earlier, Troubled by her husband's suspicious behavior, she had her suspicions about an affair but had not gone into extensive detail. Morgan then presented the detectives with copies of the surveillance photos, all consistent with the originals in that they concealed the woman's identity. She was always turning away or hooded. Morgan noted that he had delivered all the surveillance materials to Catherine just one day before the incident occurred. Back at the station, Detective Hale confronted Catherine with the photos obtained from Morgan. Although her expression remained impassive, she acknowledged her suspicions about James's fidelity. She revealed that her plan had been to confront him with the evidence during a family discussion, aiming to unearth the truth and determine the future of their marriage. Despite the tumultuous events, she insisted that she had never intended to cause him harm. Catherine described the night as one where tensions escalated rapidly when James confronted her about the photographs, accusing her of espionage. She recounted that their verbal altercation devolved into a physical confrontation, culminating tragically with the discharge of the shotgun. However, she professed to having no clear memory of the exact mechanics of how the gun was fired. As the detectives evaluated the credibility of Catherine's account, they received the forensic analysis on the fingerprints found on the shotgun. Forensic experts confirmed James's prints on the gun, but noted that they appeared to have been placed there long before the shooting occurred. Catherine had previously stated that the gun was kept in the home for security purposes and claimed she had never handled it. This assertion starkly contradicted the forensic evidence, suggesting possible tampering with the weapon, presumably to misdirect the investigation. Amidst these revelations, the footage of James speaking to an unidentified individual in a car near their home became crucial. Detective Hale ordered an enhanced analysis of the video, hoping to discern the vehicle's license plate and identify the mysterious figure present that night. As they awaited these results, the investigation team delved into the couple's phone records for further leads. They discovered that Catherine had sent multiple text messages to her sister, Lisa, on the evening of the incident. The text seemed laden with guilt or justification. One message starkly stated, "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," while another was a plea for a meeting. Lisa's lack of response to these messages intrigued Hale, prompting him to summon her for questioning. Upon her arrival at the police station, Lisa seemed visibly stressed. She confirmed having communicated with Catherine the day before the incident, but denied any contact on the night in question. Their conversation, she asserted, was about an ordinary family gathering. She claimed complete ignorance regarding the night's events and assured she had been at home throughout the evening. However, her anxious manner and evasive responses did not convince the detectives. Doubting her narrative, Hale decided to scrutinize her phone records and verify her location data to confirm her alibi. As the interrogation of Lisa progressed, a crucial update came from the team analyzing the surveillance video. The license plate of the car parked outside the Watson residence was registered to Lisa. This information significantly intensified the suspicions around her involvement, prompting Detective Hale to adopt a more direct line of questioning about her activities on the night of the incident. Initially, Lisa offered evasive excuses, but as the pressure mounted, she confessed to being near the house when James stepped outside. Her explanation, however, was murky at best. She claimed she had intended to speak with her sister but chose to leave upon seeing James without ever exiting her vehicle. Hale sensed discrepancies in her story. Further investigation into Lisa's phone records revealed a text message from James sent on the night of the incident, urging her to come over immediately. This raised perplexing questions. Why would James contact Lisa to meet if he was with Catherine? What was so urgent that it required Lisa's presence without Catherine's knowledge? The plot thickened as forensic experts uncovered more compelling evidence. In the bedroom where Catherine claimed the altercation began, they found blood on the door handle that matched neither Catherine nor James. Subsequent DNA tests confirmed the blood was Lisa's, placing her at the scene despite her previous denials. Armed with this new evidence, detectives confronted Lisa. She scrambled to justify her presence, claiming her visit was to offer protection to Catherine during her confrontation with James. Lisa recounted that she had panicked and attempted to exit the scene as tensions escalated between the couple. She maintained her innocence regarding the shooting, asserting she had no knowledge about who fired the gun. Yet, as she continued to recount her version of events, her narrative grew increasingly convoluted. The detectives speculated that the underlying tensions might be linked to James's potential affair, which could have ignited a deeper conflict between the sisters. However, the exact dynamics and the truth behind the tragic night remained shrouded in mystery, with too many critical questions still unanswered. Detective Hale made the decision to release Lisa temporarily, cautioning her to remain within the city limits as he believed they were on the verge of unraveling the case. Yet a crucial piece of evidence still eluded them, necessary to fully clarify the events of that fateful night. The following day, Hale and his investigative team returned to the Watson residence for a comprehensive search. The complexity of the crime became increasingly apparent to Hale. It was far from a straightforward familial dispute that had escalated tragically. The team meticulously scoured each room anew, seeking any overlooked details that might illuminate the situation further. They paid particular attention to the photographs within the envelope, convinced these were central to the motive behind the violence. While the private investigators' photos, commissioned by Catherine, were critical, the obscured face of the woman in the images presented a significant hurdle. They could not positively identify her. Amidst ongoing forensic examinations, Hale summoned Lisa for another round of questioning, this time treating her not merely as a witness, but as a potential suspect. Lisa, visibly uneasy, agreed to cooperate. Hale adopted a straightforward approach this time, confronting her with the forensic results indicating her blood on the door handle. He questioned her about the inconsistency in her story, given her earlier claim of not entering the house. Lisa attempted to rationalize, suggesting she might have scratched herself inadvertently while inside the house, but her explanation lacked credibility. Sensing that further pressing might yield no additional information at that moment, Hale decided to let her ponder her situation, though he remained convinced there was more she wasn't disclosing. Meanwhile, the investigation turned to analyzing the text exchanges between Lisa and James. The review of their phone records revealed several messages from James to Lisa, sent shortly before his death, with one particularly urgent message stating, "Come over immediately," and another specifying a meeting location. The desperate tone of these texts led Hale to suspect that James had been apprehensive about impending trouble. He instructed his team to delve into their past interactions, to uncover any previous meetings or communications that might shed light on their relationship and the potential catalyst for the night's tragic events. As detectives deepened their investigation into James's digital footprint, they discovered a series of emails and social media messages exchanged between James and Lisa, spanning several weeks. These messages discussed urgent steps that needed to be taken, but remained cryptically vague about the specifics of their plans. This led Hale to suspect that the connection between James and Lisa extended beyond mere familial ties, hinting at a deeper, more complex relationship. With the investigation gathering pace, attention returned to Catherine, who was visibly stressed. Detectives brought her in once more, hoping to gain clearer insights into the night's events and her relationship dynamics with Lisa. Hale questioned Catherine about her sister, probing into their relationship, which Catherine admitted had soured over recent months. She was reticent about the details, but indicated that their issues were not solely related to James. Seizing the moment, Hale pressed further, inquiring whether Catherine was aware that James had been meeting with Lisa. He presented her with the messages found on James's phone, yet Catherine's response was unexpectedly indifferent. She denied any knowledge of these meetings, maintaining that her suspicions had been focused on James's potential infidelity with another woman, not her sister. At this juncture, Hale faced a crossroads, pondering whether Catherine was genuinely unaware or if she was concealing deeper truths. The investigation then pivoted towards Lisa. Armed with a search warrant, detectives raided her residence, uncovering a notebook that proved to be a treasure trove of information. The notebook was meticulously filled with details of meetings and phone calls with James, including names, dates, and specific locations, such as the home she shared with Catherine. This discovery solidified the notion that Lisa was intricately involved in James's life, possibly orchestrating her visits with precision. As Hale sifted through more of Lisa's belongings, he found a photograph that added another layer to the mystery. A picture of Lisa and James together at the beach, suggesting a level of intimacy that went beyond what was initially apparent. This photograph underscored the possibility that Lisa could have been a central figure in the unfolding drama. The photograph of Lisa and James at the beach, appearing to be recent and depicting a close relationship, became a pivotal piece of evidence for Detective Hale. It confirmed his suspicions of a romantic entanglement between Lisa and James, a relationship that Catherine might not have been aware of or perhaps chose to overlook. As the forensic team concluded their examination of the shotgun, they found that Lisa's fingerprints were present alongside James's, but crucially, they were deposited after those of James. This sequence of events led investigators to speculate that Lisa had manipulated the shotgun post-incident, possibly to stage the scene or mislead the investigation. Further complicating matters, investigators unearthed surveillance footage from a hotel where James and Lisa had met prior to the incident. The footage captured a seemingly intimate conversation between the two, after which Lisa departed, leaving James alone. This visual evidence lent credence to the theory that their relationship was more than platonic and was unknown to Catherine. Armed with this new information, Hale quickly brought Lisa back for another round of questioning. Confronted with the mounting evidence, the photos, the video, and the fingerprints, Lisa's composure began to falter. Under the pressure of interrogation, she finally conceded that she had been involved romantically with James, an affair that had commenced over a year prior. Lisa insisted that it was never their intention to disrupt Catherine's marriage and that the affair had remained hidden until Catherine's suspicions led her to hire a private investigator. Hale pressed for more details about the night of the incident. Lisa recounted that James had summoned her to discuss how they might reveal their affair to Catherine. According to Lisa, their plan was to come clean, but the situation escalated before they could do so. She claimed to have arrived at the house with the intention of mediating, but upon hearing the commotion inside, she entered to find Catherine and James in a physical struggle. Lisa asserted that she attempted to intervene but was too late to prevent the tragic outcome. Despite Lisa's account, the detectives were tasked with verifying her narrative. However, all the collected evidence suggested Lisa was indeed present in the house when the crime occurred, aligning her physically at the scene during the crucial moments of the confrontation. The accumulation of surveillance footage, blood analysis, and fingerprints unequivocally placed Lisa at the scene of the crime. Detective Hale, however, was convinced that her involvement went beyond merely being a witness. She was hiding crucial information. The investigation took another turn when detectives delved into the financial dealings between James and Lisa. They discovered that James had transferred a substantial sum of money into Lisa's bank account shortly before the incident, suggesting a possible payoff, though the exact purpose was still ambiguous. As Hale mulled over Lisa's potential motivations and involvement in a broader scheme, a significant breakthrough came from the forensic team. They had located a phone hidden under the mattress in Catherine and James's bedroom, a phone that belonged to Lisa. Upon examining the device, detectives found incriminating text messages between James and Lisa that laid bare their intentions. The text revealed a chilling plot to stage an attack and frame Catherine for it. The messages meticulously detailed their plans, yet it was evident that something had gone awry. Armed with this damning evidence, Hale ordered Lisa's immediate arrest. Confronted with the overwhelming proof during intense interrogation, Lisa finally cracked. She confessed that there was indeed a plan orchestrated by James, who had coerced her into participating by threatening to expose their affair. She maintained, however, that the shooting was unintentional and claimed she never wanted the situation to escalate to such a fatal conclusion. Yet, the question of who actually fired the gun persisted. With Lisa and James's elaborate plan unraveling unexpectedly, Hale needed to determine why the plot had failed and who had ultimately pulled the trigger. The evidence pointed towards a conspiracy involving both Lisa and James, but the specifics of the altercation and the actual act of firing the gun remained mired in ambiguity. In the interrogation room, Lisa reiterated her stance. She insisted she was not responsible for the crime and had never intended to harm James. As Hale pieced together the complex web of deceit, the mystery of who actually executed the shooting and why the plan between James and Lisa had collapsed continued to loom large, urging further investigation to uncover the full truth. Lisa attempted to persuade the detectives that the original scheme was merely to stage a scenario where it appeared Catherine had attacked James, creating grounds for him to leave her. According to Lisa, the plan veered off course when the altercation escalated unexpectedly, leaving her on the fringes, paralyzed by indecision as chaos unfolded. Detective Hale, skeptical of Lisa's account and suspecting she was still omitting key details, initiated a comprehensive review of the entire case. The investigative team returned to the Watson residence, meticulously combing through surveillance footage and the crime scene, determined to unearth any overlooked evidence. During this thorough re-examination, a previously unnoticed but crucial piece of evidence emerged: a strand of hair lodged beneath the shotgun stock. Forensic analysis confirmed it belonged to Catherine. This new finding introduced a potential scenario where Catherine might have handled the firearm either before or immediately after the shot was discharged. It lent some credibility to her fragmented memory of the events, suggesting her disorientation during the critical moments might have been genuine. The detectives also scrutinized Catherine's phone records from the period leading up to the shooting. They found that she had been in contact with the private investigator she had hired, arranging a meeting for the following day. This was consistent with her intentions to confront and potentially expose James's infidelity, supporting the idea that she was preparing to address the matter head-on. This raised questions about why such a confrontation escalated into violence. With these insights, Hale revisited Catherine's previous statements, probing deeper to ascertain whether she had been a victim of manipulation or an active participant in the night's tragic event. He pressed her more intensively during questioning, yet Catherine maintained her inability to remember specifics. She recounted the argument over the envelope containing the photos, describing how quickly everything unfolded until it all became a blur, culminating in darkness. As the investigation advanced, detectives made a significant breakthrough. They accessed footage from a security camera in the living room that had initially been missed. This new evidence promised to shed light on the true dynamics of the altercation, potentially clarifying the sequence of events and the roles each individual played on that fateful night. James had installed the living room security camera himself, adding an unexpected layer to the case. The footage revealed a heated argument between Catherine and James, but Lisa's presence wasn't visible. Only her voice could be heard in the background, pleading with James to stop and urging for a peaceful resolution. At one point, James tried to seize the envelope from Catherine, prompting her to push him away, escalating the confrontation into a physical struggle. The video captured Catherine losing control as James grabbed her wrists. At that moment, Lisa ran into the room, desperately trying to intervene. She stepped between them, attempting to defuse the situation, but somehow ended up holding the shotgun. The footage suggested Lisa intended to de-escalate the conflict, but her actions took a disastrous turn. In a moment of sheer panic, Lisa pointed the shotgun at James, likely to scare him. However, James made a sudden move, and in the chaos, the gun discharged. Catherine collapsed to the floor in shock as Lisa stood frozen, the shotgun still in her grip, her face twisted in horror as she stared at James, now lying motionless on the floor. After a few agonizing seconds, Lisa lowered the shotgun and fled from the camera's view. Meanwhile, Catherine, shaking and distraught, slowly got to her feet and frantically dialed emergency services, her voice trembling with panic. Detective Hale now had a clear understanding of the tragic events. Lisa, caught in the middle of the rapidly deteriorating situation, had unintentionally fired the fatal shot. The plan she and James had devised to stage an attack and frame Catherine had gone horribly wrong. In the critical moment, overwhelmed by fear, Lisa had lost control, turning the situation deadly. Hale concluded the case by charging Lisa with involuntary manslaughter. Despite her tearful insistence that she never meant to cause harm, the evidence was clear. While her actions were driven by panic, Lisa had been aware she was holding a firearm and could have chosen not to use it. The weight of her decisions, even in a moment of fear, led to the fatal outcome. When Catherine learned the full truth, she remained in shock, unable to fully process the tragic web of betrayal, deception, and loss that had unraveled around her. Catherine slowly came to the devastating realization that her sister had not only been involved in the scheme, but was the one whose panicked actions had ultimately led to James's death. Despite her overwhelming grief, Catherine chose to fully cooperate with the investigation, offering crucial evidence that helped the authorities close the case. In court, Lisa ultimately pleaded guilty to charges of involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy to stage a crime. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison, acknowledging her role in the events that had spiraled so catastrophically out of control. As for Catherine, she decided to leave Perth behind, seeking a fresh start away from the painful memories that had shattered her life and family. The story had taken a far darker turn than any of the people involved had anticipated. What began as secret affairs and manipulation had escalated into a tragedy, a cautionary tale of poor decisions, lost control, and lives forever changed.